Today on Pro Church Daily, we're talking about 9 questions to ask in your next church testimony video.
Well, hey there, and welcome to Pro Church Daily, the show where in 10 minutes or less you get your daily dose of tips and tactics to help your church share the message of Jesus while we navigate the biggest communication shift we've seen in the last 500 years. I'm your host, Alex Mills. I'm joined as always by the boss man, it's Brady Shearer, and today we're talking about 9 questions to ask in your next church testimony video.
One of the places where I got my start in church media and communications, Alex, was in video. And some of my favorite videos that I've ever made have been testimony story videos where we sit down with someone in our church and basically we spend 3, 4, 5 minutes telling that individual story through video. And the bulk of that video, the entire foundation for it is the video interview. It's them from a first-person perspective telling their story, and then we piece it together in post-production. We add some B-roll over top, and we share that story with our community. It fosters more community. So often you can sit next to someone in church and you know their name maybe, but you don't really know what's going on in their life right now. Or maybe you know what's going on right now, but you don't know where they came from. And that's what makes these story videos so great. Yeah. Of course, your ability to actually execute on the video and make it quality all comes down to that interview. And so over the course of my many story videos that I've made, I've kind of got this list of 9 questions that I think are the absolute best questions to ask. And so we want to share those with Pro Church Nation.
Before we hop into these, I do need to say I've never made a testimony video, but what I will do is highlight testimonies of people on Facebook. It's great content for Facebook, whether it's a page or a group, just to, like you said, just to get to know each other more and learn about each other's stories. And so if you don't have video gear, if you're not set up to do a video and you prefer to do photos, you can actually use these same questions in the same context. Take a few different photos of one person, ask them these questions, document them however, and then use that as the text on the photo post on Facebook. I've done that and seen really great engagement on Facebook. And also, like I said, it helps to learn about each other. And so it helps you grow in relationship with one another.
Great point. Yeah. Applicable to different mediums. Question number 1. Tell me about the time when ... First couple questions we're going to go through are very open-ended, and this is purposeful. You want to set the stage for your interviewee and then hand over to them, and they can just take it wherever they want. Yeah. So tell me about the time when your parents split up. And that is such an open-ended question. It is forcing them, by the framing of the question, to tell a story. And the best way to tell a story, make a story video, is to have your interviewee actually telling a story.
Right.
Second question, very similar. Tell me the story of. Just a different way to ask it so you're not asking the same question in the same way every single time. We use these responses very frequently as the bulk of our video because we need the story and the story video to be the main focus. And so we'll just kind of set them up, put that ball on the tee, and then they can hit it and go with it.
Yeah, you'll often use the answer to one of these first 2 questions as the overarching theme, the trajectory, the story arc of the whole video, using, snippets or B-roll from other things. But the big story here is generally going to drive the arc of that video.
Correct. Question number 3. Describe the conversation ... Another open-ended question. This one is so very important because one of the best ways to tell a story is to actually recap the conversation that you've had with somebody. So in a way like that says, so describe the conversation between you and your wife when you realized that maybe this wasn't working anymore.
Right.
And so that question, you could say, yeah, my wife and I had a big fight and we realized, maybe it was time to separate. Or if you frame it as describe the conversation, now the interviewee is like, well, I looked at my wife and I said, I just don't know if I can trust you anymore. And my wife responded, well, you got to give me another chance. And now you feel like you're in the story. Yeah. Rather than recapping it, you've become a part of that conversation as if it's happening right now.
Yeah. And not everyone feels well equipped as a storyteller themselves. And so these are great ways to open that door for them and allow them to naturally do what we know to do as people who tell stories, which is use descriptive language and use these literary tools that help the listener get involved and feel like they were actually there.
Correct. Question number 4, tell me about the day you realized ... I'll use this when I'm looking for kind of that epiphany moment. Huge part of the story arc is that big change in your lead character. Where's that epiphany moment? So I'll ask right Tell me about the day you realized that your marriage wasn't over and you could figure this out.
Right.
They go with that. Question number 5, what were the next steps that got you from here to there? So again, now you're kind of figuring out the final piece of the story. You're like, okay, so you talked about the beginning, marriage was on the rocks, and you talked about the epiphany when you realized maybe there was hope for the future.
Yeah.
Talk about the actual steps you took to get from A to B. And now they're kind of finalizing that third act of the story.
Yeah, and this is the one that's going to give the listener the opportunity to insert themselves into this and say, okay, they took these steps to get where they are now. How can I mirror those steps in my own life?
Question number 6. How have you changed in the last 5 years? This is a very, very useful introspective question that forces the interviewee to look deep within themselves. I don't like to send the questions beforehand, especially because these aren't specific enough at all.
Right.
They're all just abstract questions, which makes them great for you, Pro Church Nation, because you can use them in your context. Yeah. But this type of question, how have you changed in the last 5 years? I will not tell the person ahead of time that I'm going to ask that. And then on the spot, they have to go, wow, how have I changed? Mm-hmm. And they're working it out in real time. And that gives the audience that's going to see this video that same first person in the moment response that you're seeing, because you're capturing it on camera.
Yeah.
And so this is great because now you're in the moment hearing it for the first time, but it's captured on camera. Your audience will be in the moment getting to hear it for the first time as well. Question number 7, how do you see yourself? Another introspective question. This is something that almost nobody thinks about on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
You don't wake up and go, how do I see myself? But it is a fascinating question when it comes to the psychology of each individual, and it adds so much depth and layering to a story. You're not just talking about events. You're not just talking about A to B, but now you're talking about real emotion, real psychology about the way that we interpret the world around us and the way that we play a role in that grand story.
Yeah.
Question number 8.
Yeah.
Keep it rolling. What was the pivotal moment for you? Kind of similar to tell me about the day that you realized. You're trying to pinpoint the climax of the story, pinpoint the epiphany moment. I'll usually ask this question twice so that I can give them 2 chances at it, and that way I can take the one that's best.
Right, because you're going to need it for to complete the story arc. You're going to, like you alluded to it earlier, this is a very important moment in the story, and so you're going to need the answer to this question. So asking it more than once in a few different ways is not going to hurt. And like you said, if it's a great answer both times, you can take your pick, you can splice them together, you can use different content from different answers.
So much of the interview comes down to, is my interviewee feeling comfortable?
Yeah.
I'll spend at least an hour with the camera rolling, talking, at least an hour. And what I've always found is that by the end, they are so much more comfortable that a lot of the time, the tape at the beginning, the first 20 to 30 minutes, I won't even use any of it maybe because the tape at the end is so much better. Mm-hmm. Not that the tape at the beginning was bad necessarily, but comparatively,
of course,
it was so much worse. And that's why I'll also always take time to ask this final question, what I would perceive to be the most important question you can ask. Question number 9, what have you not talked about that you'd like to mention? Up until this point, you, the interviewer, have been driving the conversation. You've been leading the conversation. You have been triggering the questions that have then led to the response. You are the one that's starting off, looking for something, searching for something. I like to close out the interview. They're at their most comfortable, and I'm going to hand it over to you to complete.
Yeah.
What have we not talked about? What are the holes that we need to fill, the gaps that we may have missed? It's your story, not mine. And I've found time and time again that this question brings about the best responses and the best tape that brings the entire final video together.
That's so good. You know, most people that you're interviewing probably don't spend too much time in front of the camera. So coming into this experience, they may not be all that comfortable, but what they've probably done, because they know that they were coming to get filmed, is they've probably premeditated something like, I want to say this, I want to say this, but maybe they didn't have that opportunity in those first handful of questions. So by the end, like you said, they're warmed up, they're comfortable, they've probably forgotten about the camera, and maybe they haven't had the opportunity to get to that thing that they premeditated. So you've got them primed and ready. You ask that question, hey, what's something that you haven't had the chance to say yet? And it's the optimal time to ask them that question. Like you said, most of the time you're going to get your best tape there. So really important.
9 questions to ask in your next video interview testimony for your church. Hope you find them helpful. That'll do it for this episode of Pro Church Daily. We'll see you next time. Hey, thanks for watching today's episode of Pro Church Daily. Make sure to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss another video.
And I know you like this one, so why don't you tell us?
hit it with a thumbs up, and like it. See you tomorrow!